Yin Kong, Zero, Hung, Cheng Xiao, Wang Xia, Ten Yi, and Lu Yu opened their eyes. Everyone looked around in panic. They were stunned to see the scene suddenly changed. A while later, Lu Yu screamed because the three girls next to him had turned into corpses. One girl barely had any skin left and the other two had wound from a gunshot. All 7 people found themselves on a taxi. The change was so drastic from a few moments ago that their minds stopped for several seconds. They were waiting for the missiles to hit in the broken house, and the next time they opened their eyes, they were inside a taxi. The taxi Lu Yu was in swayed as though something struck it, then crashed into the guardrail. The crash deformed the guardrail into a concave. Both the driver and Lu Yu banged their heads from the collision. The other 3 taxis stopped. A driver from a car to the side screamed because he also noticed a dead body in his car. The whole road was in a chaos. With 4 taxis stopping on the road, all the traffic came to a halt despite no other accidents. Zheng was sitting beside Xian. When the other team members opened their eyes, blood burst out from his body. Numerous wounds appeared as if he was cut by a blade all over. The force from the sudden break of the taxis shattered him to pieces. Strangely, his clothes remained intact despite his body being destroyed. Blood and pieces of flesh and bone splatter seat of the taxi under his clothes. A seemingly angry expression crept up Xian's face as he watched Zheng shattered. 2 gauze pistols appeared in his hands the next instant. One pointed at the driver and the other at Hung. Xian said, "Hung? Are you injured?" Hung was still staring at Zheng's corpse in shock. He couldn't respond at once when Xian questioned until a light radiating from the pistol woke him up. Xian had activated the Lambda driver, a power that was vividly fresh in his memory. Hung cried, "My legs. Right, my legs are cut off." He tore off his pants. His legs fell apart from the points where he was feeling pain. The fresh blood seemed like he had just suffered this damage. Xian shot the terrified driver without another word, crushing his head. He then opened the door and jumped off the taxi. The 2 pistols crossed in front of his body in the position of the gun kata. Using gun kata in a highway where numerous cars were stuck meant that he planned to go on a massacre. Hung wanted to say something, but the sight of Zheng's corpse stopped any words from coming out. He finally realized the situation they were in. This was the taxi they were riding to the city and where they fell into the dream world. No matter how long it had passed in the dream world, it was merely an instant's time in the real world. Then this is the real Xian? He won't do anything unnecessary. I should watch and wait. Zheng really did. Outside the taxi, Xian was massacring all the people on the highway. Only when he turned to his team members would he ask, "Are you injured anywhere?" The pistols would light up if the responses were slow. Cheng Xiao and the rest would quickly display their wounds like showing off their prizes. Yin Kong woke up at the same time with the others but quickly fell unconscious again. Those who did not come back to the safe dream never woke up. The gauze pistols and gun kata had no difficulty killing normal people without the use of the Lambda driver. No matter where someone was standing, even behind a car, the bullets would pierce through steel and kill him. In just 10 seconds, Xian had killed over 100 people. Few who survived ran in terror but soon got shot. The rest of the team members got out of the taxis and also carried Lu Yu out. His head was bleeding from the collision but his life was not in danger. Cheng Xiao asked, "What is he doing? Why is he killing all these people?" Hung hesitated for a moment before replying, "Zheng's dead." His whole body shattered a terrible death. Their eyes twitched as they all looked to Hung. Zero and Kappa rushed to the taxi Zheng was on and found the shattered flesh and bones of his body. The only thing still in whole were his clothes and the NA ring, which contained the Book of the Dead and Book of Amunare. They were the key to reviving Zheng. Zero picked up the ring, then he and Wang Xia let out a sigh of relief. Zheng could still be revived as long as they had the books, since he had not used the revival. However, they wondered why would Xian massacre people knowing Zheng could be revived. Did he feel anger? Did he lost his mind? Did he know what anger felt like? As they were wondering, a notification sounded in their heads. Killed Freddy. Each member awarded 5,000 points and a rank B reward. Xian finally stopped and slid the pistols back into his sleeves. He walked over to the group and said, "Search and take everything from Zheng. Carry everyone who is still asleep. We will detonate this place." Wang Xia, do you still have demon energy to use? Wang Xia nodded. He activated his demon energy. Several plasma bombs floated. Once they took all of Zheng's items and carried the asleep members 100 meters away on their backs, the plasma bombs flew to the highway. A blue field devoured a section of the highway. Cars melted under the heat and explosions occurred one after another. That's our situation. Xian glanced over the people lying on the ground and turned to the rest of the team. Judging from what you have said, it was indeed a dream world and Hunglu's analysis was correct. The world was built around Zheng's consciousness because he was the only one who knew of everyone's weaknesses. Then Freddy triggered your weaknesses and put your mind into a battle. As long as you don't overcome yourself, you will not wake up even after killing Freddy just like them. But why? Hung asked, aren't we out of the dream world already? Zheng, who is the foundation of the dream world, is dead. Freddy is killed. Why won't they wake up? Xian frowned. To give an analogy, computer programs are coded with zeros and ones, which are yes and no. Assuming the computer has a mind and you ask it a question that's not a yes and no question, it will loop in a logic error trying to calculate the answer beyond zeros and ones until its codes make a breakthrough. There is only one other way to wake someone trapped in this battle of the mind. What is it? Everyone asked. Format. There were no words in response. Everyone knew the meaning of formatting, but that only applied to computers and not humans. Over 10 hours passed after the massacre on the highway. The team set up a camp in a forest far away from the highway. They finally got the chance to ask Xian their questions regarding this movie. Cheng Xiao asked, "How did you end up killing Freddy when you killed those people around us? Could you kill a person in the dream?" Honglu and I were wrong. Xian shook his head. Freddy is merely a human. This conclusion should have been deduced from the original plot. However, both Honglu's and my thoughts went down the wrong direction and imagined this movie belonged to the inconceivable genre, which it isn't. Xian adjusted his glasses and continued, "The movie's plot is about a children murderer who is locked by the town citizens in a house and burned to death. 10 years later, he appears in the dreams of the children of the people who burned him and kills these children. We can hypothesize that Freddy survives the fire with extensive burns over his skin and escapes the town. His ability awakens 10 years later. The ability allows him to drag people into a dream and find that person's weakness. He can then put the person into eternal sleep. This movie would be totally explainable. To verify the validity of this hypothesis, we can consider the background of God's realm. The movie worlds are a battlefield for us to battle the ancient enemies of the humans in order to unleash our potentials through unlocking the genetic constraint or increasing our strength. The enemies that appear are the enemies of humans in the past. Could there be demons that only exist in dreams and never dies? My answer is impossible. Such form of life is invincible as long as there are no humans with a perfect heart. When not even people who reach the 5th stage can hurt them, humans would have long become extinct. Since we still exist and developed such a massive civilization, these beings could not have existed. The follow-up question is, what form of life can seize control of another person's dream and kill that person in the dream? If this power becomes stronger, it could even enslave the person. These traits are similar to nightmares and the like in movies. Yet, they are still living organisms, which means they possess a physical form and can be killed. That's why God gave the bonus mission of killing Freddy. Xian turned to the others and said, "So, Freddy has the abilities of ancient demons, an ability similar to nightmares that can enter a person's dream. He escaped death in the original movie and hid himself among normal people. After we entered this world, God arranged for him to attack us. He probably trailed after us when we left the town or disguised himself as a driver or one of us." The rest of the team finally understood why Xian asked if they were injured and also massacred the normal people. Though he was heartless for killing everyone around him. As for that last possibility, if Freddy disguised as one of them. Hung carefully asked, "What if you didn't kill Freddy after killing all the people around us?" Xian glanced at all those awake, then at Lu Yu. The boy shrunk his head and felt extremely uncomfortable. A shiver ran down their spines. They would have been in trouble if Xian didn't kill Freddy. Now that Freddy was dead, they just alive 30 days in this world to complete the mission. There wouldn't be any more danger. Cheng Xiao breathed out then laughed, "That's just like you. Taking action once you've decided and the chance of success is higher than 50%. How did you know we woke up from a dream when everything happened so suddenly?" Xian shook his head and said, "Honglu and I inferred the possibility that once you entered the dream world, any time spent inside is merely an instant in the real world unless you never wake up. The most notable feature is people waking up from a dream will be injured." Cheng Xiao said, I know. I have read data on this field. Like that famous experiment where a therapist hypnotized a patient. He touched the patient with a piece of metal and told him the piece of metal was heated. The skin that contacted the metal expressed signs of burns. Yet, the changes on his skin were induced by his beliefs. Xian nodded, "There exist many cases where wounds were induced by subconscious beliefs in the real world. Similar occurrences happens in the movie. People who gets killed by Freddy dies in the real world back then. Since you just woke up from the dream, Freddy must have been nearby. We had to kill him before the people scattered or else he would attack us again in the remaining 30 days. The team met eyes with each other and smiled bitterly. This was the real Xian. He always made strategies for the team, but his way of obtaining results remained difficult to accept despite them saving the team more than once. A moment of silence later, Zero said, "What should we do next? What about these people still in their sleep? How should we revive Zheng?" Xian took out an apple from his pocket and took a bite. "That's basically our situation. We have nothing necessary to do. Live through these 30 days first. We can try to wake them through a complete heal in God's dimension. However, judging by the fact everyone has a gap in your hearts, the heal probably only heals physical injuries. Let them sleep like a vegetable until they wake up on their own. We will raise another Psyche Force user in the meantime. That may be a way to resolve their issues." The rest of the team nodded. Xian became silent again and the others didn't know what to say. Those who had died and fallen asleep took away some liveliness from the team. Cheng Xiao quickly spoke to prevent the atmosphere from getting blue. "This movie is a trial of the heart. People with the biggest gaps will gain the most strength after the trial. Hung has become incredibly strong in the dream. Of course, still not close to that psychopath who's both strong and smart, even scarier than Zheng." "Oh." Xian then suddenly asked, "You mentioned Yinkong overcame herself in the dream. Why is she still asleep?" That was when they remembered the words Yinkong wanted them to relate to Xian. Cheng Xiao described Yinkong's actions in the dream, her increase in power, and the things she wanted to say to Xian. By the time Cheng Xiao finished, the apple only had a core left. Xian spun the core then asked Zero, "Where do you rank among assassins before you enter this realm? How far away are you from the best assassin?" Zero thought for a moment then said, My strength was above average but overall very far away from the top assassins. When it comes to only sniping, I rank in the top. However, there are still people better than me. What's wrong? Xian stared down at the sleeping Yinkong for a bit then raised his head. I just realized something interesting. I remembered Yinkong said she was the most talented assassin in her clan. Is that right? Zero nodded. He had been in contact with Yinkong for the longest time here and he knew of her strength well. Then I am curious, is her strength also strongest in the clan? Based on how she performed in previous movies, she does not live up to being the most talented assassin. In other words, is there another Yinkong? The one that's supposed to be the most talented assassin? Things would be interesting if that's the case. Zheng was not a really reliable leader. More precisely, he was not the type of person to lead a group, the type who couldn't put down the weight on their hands, who couldn't forego mercy. Too many desires restrained his arms and legs, so he often dwelled on minor details over the macro level. These people couldn't become reliable leaders. Xian on the other hand was the perfect leader, intelligent and logical to an extreme. He always acted with interest as the core, never wavered his mind for anything, not even when it came to sacrifices. This kind of leader would guarantee the team obtain the best interest possible. Yet, was actuality the same as expected? It's unfortunate, but this is how Team China becomes without Zheng. Cheng Xiao said to Lu Yu and pointed over the remaining people in the team. Since the main mission was to live in this world for 30 days, the team decided to head to a city. They might as well choose somewhere with better living conditions. Everyone was a little neurotic for the first few days in fear of falling into a dream world again. The experience left them with hate and fear of that world despite those awake had already overcome their weaknesses. Thinking over such possibility made them shiver. The good news was the dream world never appeared again. Dreams were blurred as they had in the past and mostly forgotten as soon as they opened their eyes. No one went wild on having fun after the anxiety wore off. There were a lot of things to deal with, such as figuring out the use of the 5,000 points and rank B reward, how to revive Zheng as soon as possible, and how to wake up the sleeping members. These members were core combat strengths of the team. Losing them would kick Team China out of the top teams. So they couldn't let these members die nor remain asleep indefinitely. The best method is to raise another Psyche Force user and then use Soul Link to bring our minds into their dreams. It will not help them overcome themselves, but will help them wake up. However, this has problems of its own. Xian muttered as he looked at the papers on hand. Is it dangerous? Wang Xia asked. No. Xian shook his head. Dangers definitely exist, but there's only a 20% chance. We don't have to worry too much about dangers. The first problem is obtaining a Psyche Force user and then spending points to enhance them. It will take at least 4 movies to complete this step. Before that happens, we will probably enter another team battle. Team battle? Hung took over. Does that mean the team battle will be difficult with all the people asleep? Xian glanced over him. No. What I mean is it's waste. Waste. Everyone said simultaneously. Xian continued, because our team doesn't need 2 Psyche Force users. Enhancements would repeat. Although it will put us on equal grounds when battling Team Devil, but the case would be both teams are blinded from the masks. In the end, it will become a face-to-face fight, which is disadvantageous to us. What we need isn't to split the strength of the Psyche Force user but to focus enhancement on one person. Give her the power for overwhelming advantage for a short period of time. My clone is on Team Devil after all. Humans are not food or things. How could he describe it as a waste? Despite knowing the correctness behind what Xian had said, his emotionless tone blew a chilling wind into their hearts. It felt uncomfortable and rather terrible imagining a teammate being considered a waste. So Xian continued without regard for the others. I won't raise another Psyche Force user. If Lan doesn't wake up by the next team battle, we will capture the other team and force their Psyche Force user to serve us, until Soul Link wakes our team up. Our strategy will revolve around this in the next team battle. Hung interrupted, can we really take on another team with so many people asleep? With God's rating of us, Xian shook his head and said, it isn't an issue anymore. When Zheng died, our rating fell by a lot. He's the one with the most potential who survived so far since entering this realm. God will definitely drop our rating. My question is, how much have you grown after overcoming your weakness? Hung halted and couldn't find any word. He didn't know how to describe his strength at this stage. He became more experienced in using the 4-arrow explosive shot and the Elven bloodline energy, but he didn't gain another enhancement nor made a breakthrough. We can basically assume people with the biggest gaps in their hearts exert the smallest fraction of their actual strength. This becomes more apparent during critical moments. Like people with anxiety tend to fail exams that they are good at. However, when these people overcome their weaknesses, they can often exert 200% of their strength or even more. I name these people as emotional miracles. Rare but not non-existent. Xian's tone remained indifferent. You, Zheng, and Gondo are such people. Cheng Xiao counts as half. Due to the gaps in your heart, you and Zheng could only use a fraction of your strength. I think that you right now is 3 to 4 times stronger than before. Similarly for Zheng, he will be the only force we have to rival Team Devil. If we cannot easily win the next team battle, we will never be able to win against Team Devil. Don't know why you are saying this, but your strength is also insane. The rest of the team laughed bitterly. No one could think of Xian as a strategist-type support member after the dream. In fact, they almost believed that Xian's strength had grown past Zheng to take the first place in the team. Zero asked, How do you know that Zheng has overcome himself? Did he have to kill himself to get through this movie? What if Freddy chose someone who has died once already? Wouldn't this movie have no solution then? Xian said, the answer is simple. Do you have the strength to live on? This strength isn't only pure physical force but also your will, intelligence, knowledge, and items. To make an analogy, if Freddy pulls me into the dream, I can easily gain control over the dream and kill him even if I were to have the same desire of living on. I can wake up without dying by having control over Freddy. This is the same as how a Psyche Force user from the outside can wake up those asleep. If Freddy attacked Luo Yinglong from Team Celestial, a Xiaochen item that counters the Heart's Devil will straight up kill him. Get it? This is the strength to live on. If your strength isn't strong enough for this movie, you will die like Zheng. Any movie will become unbeatable without sufficient strength. And with enough strength, even the most difficult movies are free points. The only fault with Zheng is he was too weak. Everyone left Xian's room feeling uneasy even though Xian was still talking the same way he used to be and thinking with the team's interest in mind. Wang Xia said, a lead who puts too much into feelings and a strategist with no feelings perhaps only when they complement each other will Team China become a whole. Life in the team felt dangerous without Zheng holding Xian back. It was like putting your fate to a computer. No one could remain calm and normal despite knowing the computer was set to not harm any humans. Yet, people still had resistance over the fact that a heartless computer controlled their fates. The atmosphere in the team became even more dense in the last 10 days. Even Cheng Xiao lost his liveliness to this density. Of course you need girls to be lively. Or do you want me to be energetic around a bunch of dudes? It drives up the madness level rather than energy. Cheng Xiao said. Zero was as quiet as usual. Tenyu was never spectacular with communication. Wang Xia was better but he seemed to be addicted to fantasy novels recently. As a result, every other sentence would be related to fantasies and this realm. The others stayed away from him. Hung and Lu Yu were the normal ones. Though Hung was still pretty much injured and rested on the bed most of his time. Lu Yu was too young to carry out conversations to ease the atmosphere. In just 10 days, Team China felt like a dead team. We can't go on like this. Cheng Xiao said to Hung. The team was having dinner in a 5-star hotel. Dinner was fancy but everyone only focused on their food. The table lacked the liveliness of a meal. Cheng Xiao couldn't hold it to himself anymore. Hung shrugged. Hold on for a bit more. We will return in a few more days. Maybe the heal can wake them up. Even if it fails, things will get better once Zheng is revived. Cheng Xiao sighed and asked curiously. Speaking about Zheng, I think this isn't the first time he died. He used the revival cross back in Resident Evil. Can he still be revived? Pa. The glass Zero was holding shattered. Xian sliced the steak knife into the plate. He lifted the knife and continued cutting the steak as nothing happened. Cheng Xiao nearly jumped. He forced a laughter and said, I was joking. Don't take it as real. That was the revival from the revival cross and we are using the Book of Amunare this time. The two are. Xian continued eating his tasteless steak while he said, that isn't for certain. Both are deaths. The effects may stack. If that is the case. The table fell to a silence. Lu Yu was the only one who wasn't worried. He had only just joined the team and had no bonds with Zheng. His knowledge of the team was limited to that Zheng was the leader, Xian was the strategist, and the names of the rest of the members. As for the veterans, they had developed bonds with each other through all the trials of life and death. No one member was someone that can be left behind. Feelings apart, Zheng was the core of the team. He didn't have the wisdom and determination of Xian. He was flawed in multiple areas. But it was his wish for everyone to live on that carried the team to this day. The team would collapse without him. Perhaps not instantly but Xian could not keep the team together by himself. It shouldn't be. I was just kidding. Cheng Xiao said. No one replied as they put their gazes to the food. The atmosphere thickened again along with a weight put on their hearts. It was an uncertainty of the future. It was only after Zheng was gone did they notice he had become a pillar of the team. He and Xian were the pillars that supported the team. Time ticked through the days one by one. Everyone counted until the day to return. Yet, when the time actually came, a hint of fear held them in place. Would Team China still exist without Zheng? Where would the future lead without their bonds? The clock struck midnight and the 30 days were over. In the past, they had always stayed together when this moment came. However, due to the atmosphere, the team members decided to stay in their own rooms to await the return. Furthermore, Xian had been acting strange after Zheng's death. No one could tell what was different about him but everyone felt it. Especially after the possibility that Zheng might be gone forever was brought up, he gave off a sense of danger. Hung was watching TV on the sofa quietly. Thoughts were racing through his mind. He pondered his actions for the near future regarding Yan Wei's revival. It was a difficult question to figure out how to face her. Even with the obstacles cleared in his heart and freed from his cowardice, he still felt difficult facing her and made her accept him again. Perhaps I should erase that part of the memory from her. Xian could probably do this, Hung murmured to himself. But he immediately rejected it. The other problem was he didn't want to face the Xian right now. If Zheng couldn't be revived, where did the future of Team China lie? Would he have the power to protect Yan Wei? Or would the two of them soon die together in this realm? Ta-ta-ta. A series of knocks on the door. Hung knew who it was that would knock the door instead of ringing the doorbell every time. Open the door, Yuzulf. You know I can't move so easily. Are you doing it on purpose? Cheng Xiao entered the room with a laughter. He sat down beside Hung and said, don't worry. Isn't it almost 12? There's something serious I want to ask you before we return. Hung was curious of it. What things? Cheng Xiao put on a serious expression. What stage of the genetic restraint have you unlocked? Don't tell me first stage. I won't believe it. Hung nodded, I am on the second stage. Not experienced enough with it but with a little more practice. Cheng Xiao interrupted him. That aside, what I want to ask is, what stage is Xian on? Xian. Hung also became more serious and pondered. I can't be certain. Thinking back, did we ever think Xian would have such power? We had put him on the role of a strategist even when he gained the Lambda driver and gun kata. No. Zero's voice came through the door. He walked in and said, instead of us putting him on this role, it's more appropriate to think he put himself on the role of the strategist. He hid his strength while highlighting Zheng's strength in his plans. So we naturally assumed he wasn't strong. And Hung was rather confused. Cheng Xiao and Zero met eyes with each other. Cheng Xiao said, my guess is Xian has reached the fourth stage so he has obtained feelings. However, his lifelong habit hindered him from expressing them. This explains why he has been acting different recently. Because he has feelings. Xian reached the fourth stage? Hung was stunned.